Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of sound. This is the 25th year of doing this program. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have a lot to get into, from the Steelers letting go of their center, Mason Cole, $30 million more available to every team in the salary cap. Also, we'll talk about the Pirates and Henry Davis catching yesterday, more yesterday than he did all of last year. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Penguins, who are heading toward a trade deadline and still don't know what they're going to do. Here to discuss is your panel tonight. We have Jeff Hathhorn, sports director over at 93.7 The Fan. In the middle is Colin Dunlap. From The Fan to his left, my right, would be Will Grays, Associated Press. So I'll get right into this here, gentlemen. 7-6 win. Jeff, Will, you were there today. Briefly watched that game at the beginning and then came back and watched it at the station. A lot of goals.
You didn't miss anything, Bob.
7-6. That's a lot of goals going on in that game. So I ask you, where are the Penguins right now? And with regard to the trade deadline, how do they make a decision if they're in that no man's land?
Well, they're a lot better than they would have been if they would have blown that game after they blew the 2-goal lead at the end of the second. There's still a team on the bubble, which is the common phrase this time of year, but team on the bubble of making the playoffs. I mean, they still have work to do, and they're going to go out west and face some good teams in this Western swing. If they can come back from the West and go 2-2 in this swing, they're still in it. Well, if it's an offer.
Yeah, I'll say this, and Will, I think you can probably back me up. I don't know how you feel about this, but Kyle Dubas, and you were there, he kind of hinted at, we don't have to act right now. We got some more time left. It seems like he's probably going to take it to the 11th hour and 59th minute, but it's not a surprise. He said that in his press conference, and he's going to use all this time to probably evaluate what's going on.
I mean, I think if you got to zoom out, though. If you're Kyle, you got to zoom out. The last 130 games, they are a 500 team.
Right.
You know, like, do you think, like, they would have a puncher's chance if they got in, right? Like Florida did last year. But I think Kyle has taken the long. I think he says, look, I kind of tried to do it y'all's way in the offseason. I got a bunch of older guys to try to patch this together. Hasn't worked. We need to get younger. And they went out and traded for a 24-year-old guy, and Bemstrom, who scored today, right? So I think he's.
Better not score too much.
So, then what are you getting at?
Unless there's a 4-0 run here, I really don't see any need to make a big move.
I think that becomes the question. If you're a real Penguins fan, if you're somebody that really wants what's best for this team, is a little win streak right now a bad thing? You know, does it give them false hope in what they could maybe potentially be for a short period of time, and they're really not that?
If they're knocking on the door, Jeff, and, Jake Gensel's still a guy you can use to push yourself into the playoffs. Let's say they are within striking distance. If you trade Gensel, especially if it's for future assets, you're not helping this team. Isn't the mandate to get into the playoffs and then do some damage if you can with 4 Hall of Famers potentially on your roster?
Well, that was the mandate to go into this season this way. But, if you're looking to make a hockey trade, to your guys' point, I'm trading Tristan Jarry, and because I've got Nedeljkovic, and then I've got Joel Blomqvist, who's my best prospect in the minors. He was in the All-Star game this year in the AHL. Like, let those guys split. There's value for Jarry. Plus, you don't have to make a move, so you can be patient. That's the move I would make if I'm him, because Gensel's coming off injury, plus he's going to be a free agent. You're probably not going to get as much as you would think.
Well, I'm a believer that, and look, I've talked around in circles a bit, but I'm a believer that if you just get there, anything can happen, particularly in hockey. It's called so much differently in the playoffs. The game sort of resets, and it's predicated on a goalie playing well. But especially with a team when you have 87 on it. Just get there, and if you can get there, you don't shake everything up. You just get there and see what happens with him, because he can put a team on its back and make a run.
I mean, I did ask Mike Sullivan today, after the game, this is their 3rd straight game with 4 more goals. That's only happened 3 times this season. And he said, look, we felt all along our underlying analytics are positive. And the tables just might be leveling a little bit. So, if they can go out west and if they can get 3 games, if they can score goals. The irony, of course, that, now they're scoring goals and they gave up 5 against the Islanders and they gave up 6 today. So, you wonder if, it's going to go back, we're going to swing the other way. But you zoom out, man, and you look at the last 2 years, do you think this is a cup team? And if you don't think it's a cup team, why are we going to make a trade for a rental for a team that's really not elite?
I want to go back to something you said, Jeff, about you don't think the value would be there for Jake Gensel since he is on an expiring contract. But I'm going to reverse that. Because there are so many teams that think they could win right now. If there's a little bit of a bidding war, even if you have no intention of signing Jake Gensel, another team, but you can use him to get you to that promised land, don't you think the price would be moving up higher than lower? I would. If I knew I can get a guy who can score 58 points in 58 playoff games for the stretch run, I'm doing it. And I may give up more than I want to give up.
Oh, and I'm not saying there's no value. I'm just saying his value is not his highest. And if you're still in the playoff race, I'm keeping Gensel. That's why I'm saying if you want to make a trade, I don't think you hurt yourself as much if you trade Jari because you're better in that position than you would be without Jake Gensel going forward.
Are we sure that he's going to go? He would walk in free agency? Are we sure Jake would walk in free agency?
Well, I mean, if he doesn't get a deal done now and they're coming after him with, I would imagine, their best offers, right? They got to know. They can't go into this unknowing.
We don't know what he looks like without Sid. We don't know. Jake is a great Jake, you're a great player. I'm not saying that. But, man, it's hard to if you get him somewhere else, he's on, I don't know. I think he thinks that there's a chance.
Yeah, but how much does he reduce his pay if he thinks he can get a lot more someplace else? This is his one and only time, right?
Make some moves. Trade your goalie. Trade your goalie. Clear up some cap space.
And, guys, I know we're going all over the place, but one thing we have learned about the Penguins the last couple of games, if their power play hits, they're dangerous.
Yeah, but all that
is be tough.
Superseded by this. We needed to learn two things about Tristan Jarry. It's one, can he stay healthy? And he's done that to that point this year. But two, the fact we still don't know what kind of playoff player he is at this point in his career is absolutely mind-numbing to me. And do you want to take that risk again? And I think that's why your point is very well taken, Will. Do you want to take that risk again going into these playoffs if, in fact, you make it?
And the irony is, like when he signed that deal, we were like, oh, my God, 5 years? But you look at the way he's played, and you look at his cap number, and you go, oh,
and he's been healthy.
That might be pretty attractive to a team.
It's not that bad, right. It's maybe a position of strength all of a sudden. Who knows? When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pirates. Henry Davis played yesterday, and he caught 5 innings. What does it mean? Will he be their catcher? Next on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Pirates have played 2 Grapefruit League games. One yesterday, one today, both losses, but that's not what really matters at this point. What matters is who is going to win over some jobs. Colin, Henry Davis started yesterday as a catcher, played 5 innings, looked pretty comfortable to me, and also had 2 hits. He was drafted to be a catcher.
Correct.
A lot of people, including this organization, believe that he's probably not going to be a catcher. So if he's not a catcher, how would you view his selection as #1 overall?
Unless he's a great DH, unless he has gigantic power numbers and does a lot for you offensively, then it's a failure because we've seen I don't think he's going to end up being a good outfielder, right? But you have time to figure that out in so much as this. They should march him out there every single day, Bob.
Shouldn't they have done that last year?
Correct. But you still have an opportunity this year for anywhere between 3 and 5 innings and not working with some down-the-liner that just showed up that's 19 years old that wears number 114 on his spring training uniform. With, like, real pitchers, he should be catching in these games, and you should do that for the totality and the duration of spring training. I don't get what's so difficult here.
I mean, obviously they've struggled to develop him defensively. And, look, we were in that clubhouse a lot last year, and it was pretty much once he came up, and it was the same questions, like, all the time. Like, well, we're doing it behind the scenes. We're doing it, basically out of everybody's eyes. And I'm like,
where?
It should have happened before he got here, right? Like, he should have been major league ready. To Colin's point, I don't know why he's not a first baseman. Like, that's a part. To me, that seems to be the ultimate destination. But when we look at that draft, they wanted us if they hit with some of the guys they drafted lower, because that was one of the things when they drafted him, right? It was like, well, he took less than the slot value, and we can pay these guys that we're getting lower more money and get the guys we want. So I'm not going to say it's a bust if he doesn't turn out to be a major league catcher. There's a lot of guys, start as catchers. Craig Biggio was a catcher, wasn't he, at some point? B.J. Surhoff was a catcher at some point.
Neil Walker.
Right. So, it's not a bust, but it's like 1-1. He needs to be a productive major leaguer, regardless of what position he plays.
If he hits, then we're not talking about it.
Yeah, it's all about his bat. I mean, but I think the Pirates told us last year what they think of his fielding, because if Endy Rodriguez weren't hurt, he wouldn't be catching like this. Right. Let's be real. Endy Rodriguez is their catcher of the future. Even in those games, when they had all those opportunities to play him, they never did, except 2 meaningless innings. So they know that he's a bad defensive catcher. They tried to hide that. Now they're trying to put him back there to see if he can handle it. I don't know if he can or not, but to me, it's Endy's job. So if he's catching now, it's just going to be so they can play some tricks where he might catch 10 games and then play in right field and play it at first base or something like that. He's not going to be there.
You either have to go full bore or you have to abandon it. You can't do it halfway.
Right.
And they got caught last year doing it halfway. And
not even halfway, like an eighth of the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
you got 2 innings? That's no way. All right, the other news, Colin, was 5 years, $77 million for Mitch Keller. Deserves it. He's
Right.
been a good pitcher for them, and they need an ace, and for now, he is that guy. Is that money well spent? Or, if we give you a choice here, because the Cubs signed Cody Bellinger, 3 years, $80 million, they need a first baseman. Rowdy Tellez is another one that they, 1 year guy. Would you have been better off spending money like that? Not that they would have done it. I think they should have at least engaged him. What would you have done?
Well, it shouldn't be an either-or proposition. That's number one. But if you're asking me if it was one of the two, I'd go with Bellinger. But to just knock it into the contract for Keller, $77 million at 5 years is good for the team. It's good for Keller. But I think we have to understand what Keller is. He's a number 2 or 3 starter. He's not a true ace, a big-time guy, a horse. He's not a Garrett Cole. He's number 2 or 3 starter.
This is the thing that happens all the time when Pirates sign guys for a club record contract, whatever it is. Pirates fans put that number and they assign it a larger value to that player than it actually is. When you look at the major league value, like Brian Hayes is like the 13th highest paid third baseman in the league. Brian Reynolds is what, maybe top 20? And that's totally fine for them. Like, it's totally fine for them as players. But like Pirates can be like, oh, Mitch got all that money. I mean,
it's not all that
does
money.
Mitch have to go 21-5 with a 2.65 ERA? No. To Colin's point, he is really a year from now we're talking about Skeens being the 1 and Mitch being the 2 in theory, right? So to me, it's like, and to your point, shout out to my kid, Colin Graves. We had this discussion earlier with Pop. That's why I brought it up to him during the break.
You did.
He thinks they should have signed Mitch. I think to this Colin's point, Bellinger.
I would have said both. I'm not afraid of signing. Well, you got money to spend. The guy didn't have an offer. That's easy money for a guy who's 28, hit 307, and drove in almost 100 runs.
So quickly to Colin's point, Skeens is their ace.
Right.
And on playoff teams, you pay a Keller, a second and third starter, like you're paying him. That's good signing by the Pirates. To me, it's like a Rhys Hoskins. That guy for what, $18 million to Milwaukee? You couldn't have put up $40 million for 2 years for him? If let's say you had to pay a little bit more to get him to come to the Pirates, that's the failing.
Right.
I would have signed Keller over Bellinger because I don't think there's any way they would even look at 3 years and 80. But Hoskins is a deal they could have done.
They could have done it, absolutely. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers and the release of Mason Cole, and also the salary cap is going up. They're going to have money to spend. Where will they spend it? We'll talk about it next on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.
Back, man.
All right, welcome back. #1 Cochran Sports Showdown rolls on. The Steelers made another move. This one didn't have to happen this week, but it did, Jeff Hathhorn, and that is Mason Cole, who is everybody's friend in the media because he speaks a lot and he's not afraid to say what he has to say. But he's released. Now they have no center, no traditional center on their roster. What do you think they're going to do? What's the plan?
Well, I mean, and he was also one of the leaders of the offense. He was a guy that would be honest. He talked to other guys. I mean, he tried to lead and try to get them through some tough times. I think they did him a solid by releasing him now so he could kind of get his ducks in a row in free agency. Draft. I think the center from Oregon makes a hell of a lot of sense.
So he starts right off the bat? No other insulation?
Well, they started Kendrick Green, and they gave him Marquise
that.
Pouncey's
saw-
number.
Like,
but we saw it
drafting a
happen.
center would be a
If
step
you
in the
need
right
an emergency,
direction,
you
right?
can put Herbig in center if you
Yeah.
think you need some time. But you normally draft someone and put them right into that offensive line. Last year was just odd.
Yeah, I think they'll draft a guy from Oregon, or if his leg is healed, the center from West Virginia. One of those two
Yeah, he's
guys.
pretty good.
Right.
He could be around
so
the second round.
I think that could happen. Like Will has said, you could go to one of the guys that have experience at center that's already on your line. But I think that this is now telegraphing the fact that they're going to draft a center probably in the first
And they have needs elsewhere that in free agency I would rather have them spend it on a defensive lineman if they needed an inside linebacker, if they needed a wide
Again,
receiver,
you need
a
another
wide
inside
receiver if they
linebacker,
need
they
it.
do.
So for me, like I think you can develop a center and drafting a center instead of a guard and trying to make him a center would be a step in the right direction. I think that's probably going to happen this time. They get a guy who actually has snapped the ball regularly.
The other thing with Daniels is he's going into the last year of his contract. So if you're moving him over, you're probably going to look at extending him. I mean, if you're going to make a position change out of him, or even if you don't, you're probably going to want to extend him because you're going to have a new center in there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so will $30 million more available for teams? What do the Steelers do with it?
I'm curious to see what they do with Cam. I really am. I think that gives them a lot more flexibility than they thought. I don't think he's going to play for what his salary at 16
So
his cap number
restructured?
22. But it might be, they might not have to go super cheap on him. There's a respect factor. I think that he means a lot to the organization. The organization means a lot to him. But the problem is, like, this is the thing. Everybody else also gets the same money. I think sometimes oh, there's a cap bump and what can we do? I would say, what are your priorities to re-sign first if you're the Steelers? And then maybe you front load, one of your guys early. I think we've been talking about what are they going to do with Freiermuth? What do they do? With Naj, maybe instead of exercising fifth-year option, they sign him to a short-term, a 3-year deal instead.
Yeah, I don't know what they'll do. I'll tell you what they should do. This makes Justin Fields' fifth year much more palatable, and that's a move I would make absolutely positively is go for it.
What would you give up?
I'd give up a second or third rounder without batting an eye.
How about they want more?
Oh, man,
No question.
their needs are many into for a guy.
Their biggest need is a quarterback.
Yes, but they continue, and this doesn't feel like after Ben retired where they said, well, Mason has a chance to start and Dwayne Haskins has a chance to start. Like this feels like this is Kenny's. Like they have put all their ducks behind Kenny and they mean it. And I think if you trade for Justin Fields, he's going to be going like this.
Well, if you trade for Justin Fields, then Kenny doesn't start.
Right.
Period.
And I think there's too much ego on both sides, and from the front office, the head coach, and the quarterback to make that move.
All right, one other question, Jeff. We saw the Kansas City Chiefs sign Matt Araiza, a really outstanding punter who got into some trouble, allegedly, but everything was dropped. He didn't face any charges. Nobody wanted to sign him. Why wouldn't the Steelers consider a guy like that?
I mean, I think they like Brad Wing. I mean, he came in and actually punted well, and seriously, and he's cheap, and I think that's the way they would go.
Huh. All right.
No, I mean, they're not going to draft one. I mean, they'll work some guys
I
out.
wouldn't say that. They have drafted a long snapper in the past.
Yeah, based on recent failures.
they could have actually done this during.
Like they can find a punter that doesn't. And look, yes, he did. That nothing came of that incident. But I mean, if you're the Chiefs, you can take that risk. You're the Chiefs. You're the Steelers.
But is there a risk
Why?
if he's been
There's like
exonerated?
30. There's 20 other guys that can probably average a yard less.
But he
I
was
used
known as
to,
the
you know what?
best.
I used to agree with Will on a lot of that until the whole they're all the same. Till we saw a punter for 2 years in this town that wasn't the same and really screwed up field position and really screwed up a lot of games and really put the Steelers behind the 8 ball a lot.
Right.
I used to subscribe to a lot of what you said, Will, but we just saw Harvin in this town have 14-yard punts off the side of his foot way too much.
Yeah. The other
I don't know if
There's
they
other
are.
punters out. I mean,
This guy should be extremely motivated, too. We got to go to break on that note. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pitt Panthers. Can they make the NCAA tournament? What will it take? And court storming. Kyle Filipowski got injured from Duke. We'll talk about it next. All right, we're getting close to March Madness. Pitt Panthers right now making a statement. They had a win the other night against Virginia Tech after they got routed by Wake Forest. However, they have a lot of stuff in front of them, including a head-to-head meeting with Clemson. Jeff, you cover them a lot. You're over there a lot. Do you think they have what it takes to make it? What will it take of the remaining games?
Making those threes and Blake getting hot, that's what it does for them. Listen, they moved up to 46 in the net.
They jumped
They've
over
got a
Virginia.
chance. This will be a quad 1 win if they could win at Clemson.
If they lose, are they done?
It'll also be their 7th road win, which would match any other Power 5 conference team in the nation. This would be a huge game. If you don't get this, it's a longer road. But you get this, they're right in the mix.
Yeah, the Clemson game's gigantic, right? This is the difference between last 4 in, first 4 out, it seems like, or where they'll be projection-wise after that game.
no wiggle room. When you get housed by 30, which is what happened this week, I'm sorry, you've lost all benefit of the doubt. They have to win the last 4, and they probably have to win at least 1 in the tournament.
All right, well, it sounds like a road, but it starts with Clemson. They have it right in front of them. Now let's talk about Kyle Filipowski from Duke. Because if you saw it yesterday, bottom line is Wake Forest wins a game down there. They beat Duke, Next thing you know, everybody's out on the court, and he gets injured. I don't know the extent of the injury. It looked like he had to be carried off. Have we come to the point in time where these need to be stopped?
I'm pro court storming. I am. I mean, we saw what happened with Caitlin Clark too this year, where Indiana kid ran into her. I understand that. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and people haven't get hurt. I look at it more of as a freak accident, to be honest with you.
I think they become diluted. Will says they've been going on for a long time, and he's right. But I don't think as many of them each year have been going on.
Dilute is a good word. Too many people do it.
There's too many now. Yeah. And also, it feels like now more than ever, and I've totally changed my tune on this. I used to be just like that. Well, they're harmless, whatever. Now it doesn't seem like coincidence anymore. It feels like there are too many people going out there, not just to celebrate their team, but to give it to the other guys. Yeah. And that's not the spirit of it.
Yeah, I used to be all pro court storming. And now these players are not just student athletes, they're investments And if my investment gets hurt, what if it's the home team that had someone get hurt because somebody rushed the court and they got knocked down? It's a different game now. I think you've got to stop it, and not just finding the team, like throw out a technical foul and make teams come back out and change the outcome of games.
Let me ask you this. It happens in SEC football a lot, right?
And they fine them, and it doesn't stop them.
And it doesn't stop them. The Steelers have won really exciting games at home and big ones. Why has it never happened in the NFL?
It's just kids.
They've never
look,
thought about
it. Look at it. When RMU beat Kentucky in the NIT, 10 years ago, like I was standing there and the kids ran right by me. It was cool. But I do think, to your point, like Wake's had a pretty good year. They just crushed Pitt. Like, why do you have to storm the court after you beat Duke?
Exactly.
And they're a favorite in the game.
Yeah. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to say lights, camera, offers, because it's auto show time at all number one Cochran locations. 19 new car brands available for you, and all the stars have taken center stage, and so have number one Cochran's crowd-pleasing offers. You got low lease payments, you got exceptional finance rates, incredible buy-four specials. So visit your local number one Cochran store for auto showtime offers, or you can do it simply at home, online with expressway@cochran.com. All right, it's been fun. We are done. That's going to end the program. But this week it's the Combine in Indianapolis. Rich Walsh will be there for the next couple of days. You'll be seeing those reports coming up on KDKA News at 6 and 11. That's going to do it for us. Our thanks to Mr. Hathhorn, Mr. Colin Dunlap, and Mr. Will Graves for being here. We hope to do it again soon, as we do every Sunday night. And thank you for watching right here on the number one Cochran Sports Showdown.
Shout out Cat Graves. Great swim meet at Silver Champ.